23,000 new highly quality teachers were placed in these schools across the nation. We look forward to hearing more about the work that you've been doing. So to begin with all of this, I'm going to first start with Rukmini at Pratham. And you heard me mention that you've been doing this program in Read India that sets out to, by 2010, to reach every child in India and make sure that they have basic levels of literacy and math. An incredibly ambitious goal, an incredibly ambitious target. You've reached more than half of India. You've been tracking progress through what I mentioned, this annual Status of Education report. You've opened your doors to allow the Poverty Action Lab to come in and do impact evaluations to look at the effectiveness of your model. But can you tell us, what does it look like to actually get 20 million children reading?
Lynn actually gave me the question earlier, and she gave me 15 minutes to think about how I should answer it. And I'm still wondering how to do it. I think some very basic facts. In India, we have an enrollment rate in primary school of about well over 90%, which is very historic for a country of our size. And a large part of the population, both whether it's policymakers or parents, feel that we've really achieved a major goal by actually having schools within 1 kilometer habitations of almost every village and having enrollments high. But in the work that we've been doing at Pratham over the last 10 years or so, we increasingly felt that the focus now needs to shift. Access is very important, as I think Jean mentioned, but now that we've come across a threshold of achieving a very high level of access for kids, we need to look at what is happening to them in school. And the survey that Lynn mentioned, we do a very simple reading assessment across the country. We facilitate it. It's done locally in every district in the country. Looks at whether children can read very simple things. Simple sentences in regional languages, which would be the equivalent of, I go to school, my brother goes to school, we like going to school. Simple sentences like this. And we found that 50% of our children who are in school, even up to 5th grade, cannot read simple things like this. So the Read India program actually came out of that realization that for 200 million children in the country, if 50% cannot read simple things and they're in school, and if we don't do something about it very quickly, we are going to lose many generations of children who will not be able to achieve, forget about their potential, they'll not be able to achieve even minimum that should come with going to school. So the Read India campaign is essentially what we all do, whether you live in DC or you live in a village in India. You want your kids to go to school, so you try to send them to the best school possible, and you also help kids at home. So within the campaign, we work with school systems, we work with teachers, but we also mobilize large numbers of village volunteers who are educated. They may not be college educated, they may not even be high school educated, but who are well above a primary school level to help kids who haven't learned to read or do basic math work with kids in the village. So to just give you a quick example, this summer we have summer vacations for a month or two in every state in India. And in about 350 districts, we have about 600 altogether. There was at least 1 or 2 young people in each village working with kids who haven't yet learned how to read. So the numbers actually at the village level seem manageable. There's about 50 or 100 kids who need help. But in a country of our size, if you multiply it by that many villages, it comes to the numbers that you're talking about.
So what are the essential pieces of what it is that you do to actually get the children reading? You're working with volunteers. What's the role of the government? How are you working on materials?
Couple of very simple elements. You have to find the time to pay attention to kids who haven't learned how to read. In our schools, often, the way that teaching is done is that there is a curriculum that is specified for a particular grade level, and the teachers teach to the curriculum, ignoring the fact that there is a large numbers of children who are well below the level that they need to be at. So whether you're working within the school or outside, you need to focus on where the kid is at. So the simple reading assessment really helps. And you need to set aside time so that you can achieve the goals that the assessment kind of indicates that you're going to do. The second thing you need is you need some adults. They could be teachers, they could be youth, they could be volunteers. You need to have some adults who are going to help the kids to do this. Third thing is you need reading materials. You need to have simple, very simple, very attractive reading materials that children can have access to. They need to be very reasonably priced. They need to be distributed. And finally, I think you have to be able to measure how far you've come periodically. So I think these are the key elements. Our belief is that we work with the government wherever the governments are willing, but we work any case. If the governments are not, governments are usually willing, but it takes them a little bit of time to get on board. So in state after state, I think as citizens you have to move ahead, and usually if it's a good idea, the government comes along.
Thank you very much. Let's turn to Mali, a country with far fewer people but much higher illiteracy rates. And so Maria's been working in some pretty harsh conditions. She's been working in communities where more than 90% of the communities are illiterate. But she's developed a pretty powerful model for how to get the community involved in and around the school with these communities that are illiterate, get them to develop a plan for improving the school. She's been working with teachers to get them to adopt a method for teaching reading. They've developed an innovative integrated curriculum, and they're doing a lot of this work in mother tongue. And in Mali, there are many languages. I know of at least 8. Maria can tell us just how many there are. And so, Maria, you are in the process of actually scaling a model that you've been working in a number of community schools, and now you're actually involved in the process of taking it to scale. If you succeed in showing that you can do mother tongue instruction for these kids and provide a high-quality education, what will it mean for